You must have heard the name Alex Honnold. He was all over the news last few days. He free soloed the Taipei skyscraper, Taipei 101. It was telecast live by Netflix. I happened to watch some bits and pieces of it, and it was simply astounding. That sparked my curiosity, and I decided to dive in a bit more. And then I happened to see footage from his free soloing El Capitan in Yosemite Park. That's a sheer vertical rock face with no obvious hand or footholds. And watching it made me realize that Taipei 101 would have been child's play for him. Honnold did the El Capitan, climbing the 900 or 1,000 meters, 3,000 feet of vertical rock face. No rope, no harness, no safety net. It was frightening even to watch it. And I read and I heard people say that many consider it as the greatest athletic event of our times. But that made me also wonder, is it, or is it sheer recklessness? One slip and it's over. And I thought, if there were ever a moment that needs divine intervention, divine support, divine safety net, this would be it. And here comes the interesting part. Honnold is an atheist, by his own words, and quite firmly so. No God, no afterlife, no hereafter, no rebirth, no sense that something supernatural is watching over him, and yet absolute discipline, control, and calm. Many of us, carry an assumption, often without noticing it, that mortality, facing death, requires belief in something beyond death. And here is where Honnold unsettles me. Because if this man, in this situation, doesn't believe in God, then what exactly is belief doing for the rest of us? Honnold says something simple. This is the only life I get, so it matters deeply. He doesn't see nature as proof of God. And I'm talking this based on whatever I read about him, his interviews, etc. For him, the mountain is not sacred, but because it was created by a divine force. It is sacred because it is real, unforgiving, and demands his complete presence. For him, the absence of an afterlife doesn't make life meaningless. In fact, it makes it sharper. And here, I turn the lens inward. So, I'm a bit confused here. I'm the one who does not see that events in my life are products of divine intervention. I even sometimes joke, if there's a God, he no longer interferes. He's like a parent who has stepped back and let the children learn. So I can view Honnold's act with an engineering mind also, probabilistically. The climb is influenced by many parameters, random parameters that influences the outcome. Grip quality, foothold friction, his physiological state, weather, condition of the rock, the effects on the rock face, etc., etc., etc. And then ask the question, what is the probability that somewhere on this 900-meter route, resistance is less than the load, or load is greater than the resistance, and he falls? In other words, what's the probability over thousands of moves and many uncertainties that something goes wrong and he dies? For a structure, it's defined by code standards, engineering practices, etc. For example, bridges are designed with target annual failure probability of, I believe, 10 to the power of -5 or 10 to the power of -6, which is governed by what society accepts for the small chances of failure that can result in multiple casualties. So there we look at this reliability analysis is carried out considering that and limiting it to a target annual failure rate, as I said earlier. So if we look at Hornell's free solo in a similar fashion, like a structure with an extremely severe consequence of failure, which is death. So you look at all these random parameters, and then you have to arrive at a risk level, which in this case he must accept. It's not because he is doing it, so he has to accept the risk level. And that's how he will be seeing this climb. And I can see that faith is not a parameter there. So coming back to my dilemmas, so science explains outcomes. I'm clear about that. Divine intervention doesn't change events. I believe so. Yet the dilemma is there. Okay, I said it here, but I normally never say it out loud. What's stopping me? I think one key factor is I feel culturally tethered. So because of all that I have inherited culturally from society, from my parents, from my family, a small voice says, don't say it out loud. What if it gets jinxed? What if something goes wrong? Name it whatever, not belief, not disbelief, hesitation. So, I don't believe, I don't fully believe, but I'm not entirely free of belief either. And that made me realize something uncomfortable. Belief is not only about what we think is true. Belief is also about comfort, inheritance, and in some ways fear. So, going back to the original question, was it a reckless act by Hornell? Viewing through his eyes, I do not see recklessness. I see a man who has removed one layer of protection, belief in safety of a divine support, and replaced it with preparation, discipline, responsibility, and acceptance. That's how some people are. They live as if this life is everything. Many others live as if there is something more, something beyond this life. There is no right or wrong here. Both are ways of facing the same truth, that life is uncertain and death is real. Some hold on to faith. Some hold on to laws of science, preparation, with a clear understanding of risks, acceptance, risk and key factor, acceptance of the consequences. And some like me live somewhere in between. So the real question, so what's the real question here? It's not whether God exists or not. Perhaps the real question is, how much uncertainty can we live with? Yeah. How much uncertainty can we live with? That's the real question.